Hello, I'm Diego. I'm here in Paris with Frédéric, CEO
Hi.
of MoZaïC Asset Management. Hi, Frédéric.
Hi.
Thanks to having us and having this nice conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Nice. Let's talk with market context. Quick overview. How do you see France and especially the international investor appetite towards the market?
I think the French market has, typically there was a lot of presence of French investors and who knew the market quite well, knew the specificities of the regulation, etc. I think what we have seen with the interest rates rising, plus the fact that the office is not has been a little bit struggling, and people want to get out. That has generated a little bit of a withdrawal from French investors and entry or more presence of international investors with maybe slightly a little bit more ambitious or risk-taking strategies, value-add strategies. And this is what is animating, I think, the market presently.
Great. Now moving into the operational assets, I know that you are very active on the healthcare segment. How this asset class compare to the others that you were also active before?
The healthcare asset class, has experienced a very strong growth had been experiencing that over the last 15 years, because it was a relatively niche asset, and more investors have discovered it, and it has grown. However, it's true that since COVID, plus interest rates rising, it was essentially a core plus strategy, plus some issues with operators, both in France and Germany for different reasons, but reputational issues and some financial difficulties of operators. We have had, the last 2 and 3 years have been a little bit more difficult. But as we know, the underlying demand is there, is growing. Demography, aging, increased demand for care. This is gonna keep on growing in the future. So that is providing a kind of a strong support for the asset class, despite the issues I have mentioned before.
Okay. And how do you see pricing and deal flow evolving across different operational living segments?
So if we broaden back to the larger living, I think, again, the lack of transactions that have occurred in the last 2 to 3 years since the change the increase in interest rates, make it a little bit harder than before to actually, define where correct pricing is, etc. Valuers, brokers find it difficult to really revalue portfolios because there is a lack of reference points, a lack of transactions. I think, of course, there are still some deals, but is it representative of all of the market? That's what is difficult to say. I think on the backdrop of investors generally wanting to move out of office and diversify into what used to be called alternative segments, but are now becoming more and more mainstream, such as logistics, retail, who has always been there, and living. This is fueling demand, even though not as huge as before, but it's fueling demand. And so, we haven't seen pricing really or yields, really going too high. So we are still, there are relatively interesting deals to be made at interesting pricing, but it's not, we're not yet in a either distressed or opportunistic area. We're still somewhere between core plus and value add strategies. So yeah, so there's a lot of demand. This is fueling the market, not a lot of supply. So again, it's difficult to really define correctly pricing, but I think step by step the market is coming back. Liquidity is coming back, and so I think in 26 we should be able to have a better view.
Okay, and in terms of market maturity, how does the ecosystem, like banks, investors, and operators, see healthcare and other operational assets?
I think again, the market in France was very dominated by French operators or investors and operators who were kind of used to regulation, specific regulation of the market, etc. So they had a relatively good level of maturity and understanding of that market. Plus, if we look at healthcare in particular, operators are quite developed, very consolidated. There are some of the largest consolidators in the European market. So that helped educate the market as well. We have listed companies, so we have brokers coverage, etc. So I think the market, the French investors were relatively mature, and the banks as well, because they have been following that sectors also for a while. As I said at the beginning, maybe the withdrawal a little bit of French investors into that market has generated new entry into this market, and obviously needing to be educated on that market and on the specificities of the French market vis-a-vis what they have seen, mostly in the UK, because that's the largest market in Europe, and Germany or south of Europe, etc. So I think you have a mixity of levels of maturity between investors, whether they are French or non-French. And for the banks, I think we haven't seen new banks entering the market. I think either the French banks who are covering that market or the non-French banks already present in France have remained, and so no major movement there.
Okay, and the current situation, what is your biggest challenge nowadays?
Well, I think as I mentioned, we had two, apart from COVID and interest rates, specifically to the healthcare sector, we had two issues that have touched on that sector, that affected that sector, which was reputational risk of because there was one big scandal among one of the operator in France, and we had some solvability issues in Germany among some of the operators. So I think the biggest challenge for us is restoring confidence and provide more transparency to the investors in the sector. And this is what we as MoZaïC are trying to do, but not on our own. Bringing more transparency to the market and doing that collectively. We have put together a number of investors, operators, institutions around the table, and we are about to publish a white paper on the subject. And the objective is really to educate the market on its specificities and on the sub-segment within healthcare, because it's quite different. And it is to bring, be able to give a roadmap for investors on what are the risks and how can we address those risks, and then more transparency and change the way that landlord and operators operate to provide more transparency for the investors so that they can better understand that sector.
Interesting, very interesting. And thinking about the future, what you believe needs to happen to the industry to move forward and to evolve?
Well, again, I mean, hopefully, that better understanding of that market is going to fuel demand and more liquidity from investors. It is a very visible market in terms of what are the underlying trends. We know that there is a lot of demand. We know that the public sector is not going to be able to to provide and to meet that demand. So the roadmap and sort of nature doesn't like emptiness, and so we will need to fill the gap. Investors need to fill the gap, but I think they will do so only if they have this transparency and better understanding. So that's what we're trying to bridge in order to to find growth again in the sector.
Okay, thank you. You are a long time member of a GRI club. What you like the most of the club?
I think, I mean, what is good at GRI, and I think what I'm not the only one to like, is the this feeling that when you attend conferences, you don't attend just to receive a lecture by someone, but it's this sort of closeness and kind of salon discussion that people like, because it's quite informal. People feel that they can intervene, they can participate, and of course by doing that they interact better, they learn from the industry, and they meet and potentially hopefully make business opportunities through this informal setting. And I think that's what people like, and you're doing that quite well.
Thank you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's great to see that you are pushing the industry, that you are collaborate with others to make it better. Count on us to publish the white papers and to support the industry to move forward and to have a strong and more transparent industry. And I'm sure that is very needed in the future, this specific asset class.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your questions and for having me.